Hello, my name is Jacob Chandler. Today my presentation will be about Global Positioning System, or GPS. So in this presentation, we're going to review a brief history of GPS technology. We're going to have a brief overview of how the GPS technology works, how many satellites we have, some current applications for this technology, some perceived negatives of this technology, having it so integrated in everyday life. What are the negatives behind that? And some possible future applications for this technology. So as civilization advances, the technology will advance, and how we will utilize that technology in the future. A brief history of GPS. It started with Sputnik. For those of you who don't know, Sputnik launched on October 4th, 1957. It was launched by the Soviet Union, and it was a test satellite. And so what happened was the scientists at MIT, who eventually developed GPS, realized that the radio waves it was emitting, it could be tracked using the Doppler effect. And what they realized is that they reversed the Doppler effect, they could then track the receiver here on Earth. And the basis for GPS was then born. So how does GPS work? Basically, the principle behind GPS is that it uses triangulation. So a GPS receiver precisely measures the time it takes for a satellite signal to make its brief journey to Earth, usually less than a tenth of a second. And then it multiplies that time by the speed of a radio wave, which is roughly 186,000 miles per second, to obtain the corresponding distance between it and the satellite. And that's pretty much how GPS works. There are currently 24 satellites in orbit that the U.S. has launched. 3 of those satellites are reserved as backup satellites. So let's look at some applications for GPS. Some current applications are, of course, navigation systems. Anyone who has a car has a navigation system, has a GPS receiver, tells you where you're at, it knows where the roads are. Anyone who has a smartphone probably has GPS on their phones. GPS is used obviously to track vehicles, deliveries, shipments, equipment on job sites, and GPS is used for map making. So some perceived negatives about GPS. So are we as a civilization becoming too dependent on GPS? Think about what would happen if GPS was interrupted for a day. There's an interruption in GPS would throw off time. So in addition to longitude and latitude and altitude, GPS provides a critical fourth dimension, which is time. Each GPS satellite contains an atomic clock, and that syncs with all the other GPS receivers. Therefore, everybody's on the same time all the time. So if that got thrown off, imagine what that would do to flight times. That would throw those off, because obviously you can't have 2 planes that land at the same time. So that consistent time keeping is very important to our civilization. What can interrupt GPS? Solar flares could disable GPS satellites. The threat of a hostile government or other people looking to intentionally either jam or disable satellites is another possibility. So like we said, watch times are based on GPS. Lack of GPS could cause traffic jams. Think about this. We travel at high speeds on highways. Imagine if you had to break out a map and look on the map as you're going on the highway. It'd probably cause an accident. And so that accident would lead to traffic jams, because it would be hard for ambulances to get to the location of these accidents, because they also rely on GPS. So you have an accident on the highway. People are trying to get around that accident. They don't have GPS that tells them how to get around the accident. They don't know there's an accident. And on top of that, now you have emergency vehicles trying to get to that site who don't know exactly where it is because they don't have GPS. So it could cause kind of a mess, both time, obviously cars, people trying to get where they need to go. So some potential future uses for GPS. So we know that technology will get cheaper. We know that technology will also get smaller. So imagine that there are products with GPS receivers in them, everyday things. You go to the store, there's a high dollar thing there, or an item that is constantly stolen. Could businesses start using smaller, cheaper GPS receivers in high dollar goods in the store to track their inventory? And what about the application of GPS receivers? Could they one day, be installed in our kids, in our parents with Alzheimer's to keep track of them, pets? So those are a couple of possible future uses for GPS. Even though civilization spent thousands of years navigating the Earth without the use of GPS technology, GPS seems like a natural progression for our civilization. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.